Meet Shin Sang-yun, 55 years old and gasping for air in a dark cave. He steadies himself, wondering what the hell he's even doing here. At his age, most guys are thinking about retirement, but him. His life feels like one long failure. A sudden growl snaps him back to reality. A monster stares into the cave where he was trying to rest. He mutters under his breath. Can't a guy even get a moment's peace? As the beast lunges, he forces himself up. Sword in hand, he thinks about the other players from his generation. They're called sword saints, sword gods, absolute legends. Meanwhile, he's just an old man with a blade, mocked for his age and barely even noticed. He wonders if that isn't enough reason to just give it all up. You see, Shin grew up an orphan with no family. As a kid, he saw it all. A monster holding his teacher in its claws. Through the pain, she tried to calm him. She told him not to be scared. She screamed at him to run. But he just stood there frozen as the creature crushed her skull into nothing. The orphanage, his only family, was completely wiped out that day. When the collapse first tore the sky open, monsters rained down and stole everything. But even on the brink of death, he didn't despair because someone showed up. An unknown player who saved his life. The man asked if he was okay, but all Shin could do was cry, overwhelmed that he was even alive. Now, years later, his sword slices through another monster's neck. He fights because of him. He wanted to be a hero just like that man, giving it his absolute all. But no matter how many beasts he killed, he never got any stronger, never protected anyone. After taking down the last monster, he drives his sword into the ground, body trembling. His exhaustion is hitting a critical point. He's totally spent. And in this line of work, that's a death sentence. Then a deeper, more powerful growl echoes. Confused, he looks up to see a monstrous titan looming over him. It appears out of nowhere, its mouth opening wide, ready to unleash a torrent of fire. As the heat washes over him, he lets out a slow, final breath. No home, no family, no dreams, just a life full of failures and regrets. Tears well up in his eyes as he realizes just how badly he messed everything up. If only he could go back, just once. A moment later, Shin Sang-yun stands victorious. He's over the dungeon's boss. The system congratulates him for clearing the ancient dragon's nest, but he doesn't feel any pride. Just pure frustration. He's almost 60 and he's still pushing himself this hard. 30 years as a swordsman and his greatest accomplishment. Ranking in his country's top 100, a meaningless number in a world of millions. He feels like a single needle lost in an endless haystack. A book materializes in front of him, a reward he guesses. He even briefly wonders if he can eat it. He's consumed artifacts before. But before he can even think about it, the dungeon entrance suddenly opens. He's shocked. A system message pops up. The Constellation Late Bloomer's model student has entered. Late Bloomer, as Shin calls him, addresses him directly through the system. It announces that Late Bloomer sincerely blesses him and praises his final strike. And trust me, you and I are about to see this old man's life change forever. Alright, let's dive in. Late Bloomer made a deal with him when he was just a third-rate swordsman. And now, his constellation reminds him of a crucial milestone coming up. Reach level 850 and all artifact and title stats double. At level 900. They triple. Sang-yun just stares in silence. His current level is 650. The conditions are just insane, and even with a powerful backer. He hasn't reaped a single benefit from their contract. Late Bloomer urges him on. Tells him to just consume the skill book. Sang-yun, unimpressed, replies that he was already about to activating Devour Artifacts, the only skill he ever got. Upon awakening, he consumes the book, but his journey to understand this power. It's been absolutely ridiculous. He's boiled them, fried them, you name it. He experimented with artifacts for years, only to find that nothing ever changed. By the time he realized Mana Synchronization was the key to unlocking his skill. Let this sink in for a second. 3 whole decades had already slipped through his fingers. Other hunters got stronger the moment they awakened, but he just wasted precious time. But now the book remains unchanged. Annoyed, he throws it aside, questioning if it's even a real skill book. Late Bloomer looks just as shocked. He admits that any information on Devour Artifacts is extremely rare. He apologizes, suggesting Sang-yun just try again with Mana Synchronization. He reminds him that there's still plenty of time. Seun just scoffs at those words. A lot of time, what's he talking about? He has no time left, he's almost 60. If he'd had a kid at 30, that kid would be 30 years old by now. If he'd started earlier, he might even have grandchildren. He snaps at Late Bloomer. Yells that he wouldn't understand because he's a constellation, humans die young. Late Bloomer falls silent, then offers another quiet apology. Sang-yun just sighs. He assures him it isn't his fault. His life is just filled with one big regret. Late Bloomer seems shocked, but Sang-yun continues, confessing he spent his entire life chasing after a man whose back he could never even reach. He gave it his all, but now he's just exhausted, too old. Late Bloomer stays quiet. Then he smiles, but Sang-yun is resolute. He tells him to listen closely. He's retiring, now pay attention because this is where everything changes. As he speaks, a strange purple smoke begins to swirl around him. And before he can react, Late Bloomer is standing right there, casting some unknown spell. The smoke thickens, dissolving around him, and the last thing he sees is a system message. Constellation Late Bloomer model student has utilized an experimental essence. Regression process initiated. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, player G and reporter Park Youngman are observing the phenomenon. Youngman asks if this is the typical environment players work in. Han Hunjung, CEO of Hunjung Corporation, confirms it, explaining that dungeons are just stepping stones for hunters. Gates, on the other hand, are portals leading to completely unknown dimensions. They're uncharted territories for players to explore and conquer. Back in Sang-hun's apartment, he's just cleaning his dagger while watching a TV broadcast of Hunjung explaining the nature of dungeons. The familiarity of it all sends a chill down his spine. It's been years since he last saw this show. As realization sets in, he confirms what he already knew deep down. He had truly regressed, and you and I are about to see his brand new story begin. Alright, let's jump in. 30 years in the past, he wakes up and finds himself back in his tiny studio. His body isn't the weathered 55-year-old warrior anymore. He's back in his 25-year-old prime. But every single memory from his old life, still there, crystal clear. No matter how he racked his brain, there was only one possible answer for this. It had to be the work of Late Bloomer, a miracle from the constellations. Nothing else made sense. He flips his dagger absent-mindedly through his fingers, catching it as the confusion swirls. Shaking it off, he decides not to overthink it. Time to get out there and grind. Just then, the system pops up, showing info on his weapon, Venomoth's dagger. A bronze artifact with 17 attack power and a nice +10 agility boost. He remembers it well. For this early in the game, it was an incredibly lucky find. The rank might be low, but he knew its hidden skill was the real prize. The system shows his current absorption rate is only 10%, but since he's used it before, it's jumped to 20%, still low. Sure, he hasn't used it long enough. But what really mattered wasn't the rate, it was the dagger's secret ability. So without hesitation, he activates Mana Synchronization. Now pay attention, this part's wild. He enters the gap of unconsciousness, a necessary step to absorb any artifact. As he does, his hair turns a brilliant white. Stepping into the gap always made him nervous. You never know what shape the artifact is going to take. This time, the dagger becomes a perfectly cooked piece of fried chicken. The system chimes in, confirming it's ready. The dish then levels up, evolving into a rotisserie barbecue chicken drizzled in olive oil. He lets out a sigh of relief, at least it wasn't something gross. A humid swamp centipede dish is way less appealing. He happily digs right in. Hey, he wouldn't mind eating a meal like this anytime. As he finishes, he permanently gains +2 agility and acquires the hidden skill, Demon Bash. With the dagger now fully absorbed, it vanishes forever into thin air. Losing the weapon was a shame, but the new skill was worth it. Totally satisfied. Everything had gone according to plan. Time to make his next move. Meanwhile, over at dungeon number 85, managed by Team Uniyoung, a man rushes over. He's in a total panic, running straight for Yun Deokyoung, the team leader. Deokyoung instantly recognizes him as the Porter group leader and asks what's wrong. The man frantically explains that one of his guys, a newbie named Shin Sang-yun, had just suddenly quit, but Deokyoung, completely unconcerned, he waves it off. He tells the guy that Sang-yun was assigned to the player team, not the Porters. The Porter leader is stunned. he demands to know what's going on. Shin-yun just awakened. The kid hasn't even finished the player academy, throwing a total rookie on the main team. That's not just unheard of, it completely messes up the team balance. Frustrated, he asks how he's supposed to rebalance all the work now. Deokyeong just sighs. He steps closer, his voice dropping to a serious tone that sends a chill down the man's spine. He formally addresses him, reminding the porter leader that he's in charge of handling everything, his team, the contribution system, and any adjustments needed. Not wanting to push it, the porter leader forces an awkward laugh, apologizes, and just walks away, though you can tell he's still deeply uneasy about the whole thing. Watching him go, Deokyeong exhales annoyed. His vice guild leader then questions the call. Even he admits the decision was pretty shocking. Deokyeong is surprised by his doubt. But he had his reasons. If someone had to die today, it would be Shin-yun, not them. Yeah, you and I just heard that right. Seeing him fail would put the porters in their place and prove the real value of the players. He scoffed, a level 1 nobody. Utterly useless, the vice guild leader just laughed, seeing right through Deong's plan. But here's the thing they didn't know, Sang-hun overheard every single word. Calmly, he steps forward and greets them, announcing that starting today he would be working as a player. The porters glared, pure resentment in their eyes. The players just sneered, totally amused. He expected some hostility, but this level of obvious hate was almost funny. Deong, faking a friendly smile, walks right up to Sang-hun, welcoming him and joking that he expected him to be late. Noticing his weapon, Deong asks if it's a longsword. Sang-hun awkwardly confirms it, admitting he studied different combat styles by watching YouTube videos. Deong barely holds back a laugh. A longsword is one of the toughest weapons to master, and this kid planned to learn from online videos. But Sang-hun didn't flinch, saying he'd at least try to protect himself, asking Deong to trust him. Amused, Deong praises his guts, yelling to the others that a man's gotta have spirit. Pay attention, because with that he rallies the team. The dungeon raid begins now. He tells them to go wild and the players cheer. Stepping through the portal one by one, as Sang-hun follows, Deong watches him in silence. The thought of Sang-hun thinking dungeons were something he could just handle after watching a few videos was laughable. The pure arrogance of a new player was getting on his nerves. Sang-hun had a death wish. Deong knew this place inside and out, an orc dungeon, a notorious death trap for any newbie player. Sang-hun was about to learn a hard lesson. It was just a matter of time, but then a shocking sight stops him dead. Orc corpses everywhere, his brain just couldn't process the scene. Staring at the absolute carnage, one question suddenly hit him harder than anything else. Who the hell was Sang-hun? And what did he just walk into? Now let's talk about orcs for a second. You've seen them in games and movies. Because they're so common, a lot of players think they're weak, especially compared to monsters like dragons. Sure, orcs aren't smart, they're all brute force, but their raw physical power makes them a total nightmare. Which is why arrogant new players who rush in without a plan often underestimate them. And it usually gets them killed. We're talking an average height of 250 centimeters, weighing about 180 kilograms. They have a massive power advantage over humans. This overwhelming strength earned them a pretty grim nickname, the Wall of Lament. As the team pushed deeper inside, one of the players gets in Sang-hun's face, reminding him he won't get any special treatment just because he's new. He's on his own, the leader of the porters scoffs, spitting on the ground. He sneers, asking why he's acting like a real player so soon after awakening, calling him arrogant right to his face. But Sang-hun, he just gives this awkward laugh and promises to do his best. The porter leader is not impressed, snapping at him to prove it, not just try. But even with all this hate, Sang-hun stays calm and asks if he can fight on the front line. All right, stick with me, because Sang-hun's request just left this man completely speechless. He finally explodes in disbelief, screaming at Sang-hun, asking if he's lost his mind. But before anyone can respond, a shout rips through the air, an orc right behind them. Gripping his sword tight, Sang-hun knows this is his first real battle since regressing. He's about to volunteer when another player lunges forward, shield raised high. The man shoves the orc back, then immediately starts cursing out Sang-hun. He's furious, demanding to know how he plans to swing a greatsword moving that slow. But Sang-yun, totally unfazed, just assures him that he doesn't need any help. The man just growls in frustration, telling him to stop talking and prove it. He's completely unaware the orc is already raising its weapon for a deadly strike. Sang-yun warns him to look out, but the guy, still irritated, just dismisses him. And yeah, you and I both know what happens next. The massive axe comes swinging down. A gasp of pure terror escapes him as he stares, totally unable to react in time. At the last second, Do-young intervenes, ramming his shield into the orc. The monster crashes to the ground, and Do-young barks at them, clearly annoyed. He demands to know if they came to the dungeon for a picnic or a fight. The player quickly apologizes as the rest of the party just watches in awe. Taking control, Do-young orders everyone to stand back. He'll handle the orc himself. Enraged by the interruption, the monster lunges forward again, swinging its axe. It comes down in a powerful arc, but Do-young braces his shield, taking the impact. Then he thrusts his sword forward, piercing the orc's chest. The spectators cheer. Everyone assumes the fight is over, but then the orc's eyes snap wide open. Burning with fury, it roars, ripping the sword from its own chest. It swings its axe again with even greater force, cracking the very ground beneath them. The weapon misses Do-young, who manages to leap back at the last possible second. Cursing, he realizes he didn't manage to finish the job with that one hit. Sang-yun just watches the battle in silence. Do-young is the highest level player here. But even at level 50, he's struggling to land a decisive blow on this thing. Frustrated, Do-young launches another attack, driving his sword into the same wound. He screams for the orc to just die already as he rips the blade back out. This time the orc collapses lifeless. The team erupts, absolutely amazed. They can't believe he single-handedly killed the creature. Do-young just laughs it off. He makes sure everyone is unharmed and gets ready to move on. But before they can, the sound of guttural growls echoes through the dungeon. Now get ready for this. The ground trembles as a whole swarm of monsters emerges. Orcs with crude weapons, high orcs, and even heavily armored orcs. The sight of this reinforced army sends pure panic rippling through the team. Desperate, they all turn to Do-young, begging for some kind of direction. He forces himself to stay composed, telling the team to fall back to safety. But inside, he knows, if he barely beat one orc, how can they possibly face a horde? Before he can even think of a plan, Sang-yun unexpectedly speaks up. He asks if he can take a shot at them, and trust me, that one question shocks everyone. The players snap at him, questioning if he has completely lost his mind. Do-young tries to reason with him, saying he gets the excitement of awakening. But this is no time for reckless bravery, and before he can even finish his sentence, Sang-yun was already gone. Do-young screamed after him, a desperate warning. But stick with me because this isn't a suicide run, not even close. Gripping his sword, he zeroed in on the closest orc, one clean downward swing. And with that single strike, the monster was sliced perfectly in two. Silence. The entire battlefield froze. No one could process what they just saw. Someone whispered in total disbelief, asking if they'd really just witnessed that. An orc one-shotted. Meanwhile, Sang-yun just casually rests his longsword on his shoulder, muttering to himself that the cut wasn't quite as clean as he'd hoped. Maybe because he was still just level 1, and then the system window pops up, confirming it. Level 1, no title, no constellation, his only skill. Devour Artifact, health at 200, mana at 20, and experience at 40. Pathetic stats, right? Yet he just effortlessly destroyed a monster that nearly wiped them out. The same monster that almost took down their party's strongest player. And now the orcs. Furious, they see their buddy get sliced in half and charge him all at once. But this is where it gets crazy. He's totally calm, saying that while he's low level, he's got plenty of experience, and without a second thought he cuts them down. One after another with absolute precision, their bodies just torn to shreds. In a single sweep, but before he can move on, their leader steps up. A massive hammer comes crashing down. He dodges it, narrowly avoiding the blow. With total ease, and counters in one fluid motion, slicing the armored orc clean in half. As its body falls, he wonders if it knew just how many orcs he'd killed back in the day, his team still frozen, struggling to believe their eyes. Doubt fills their faces. Is this the same person? The guy they thought they knew, because as they watch him, Carve through the horde so easily they realize he might actually kill them all. Every last one he swings his longsword once more and then he locks eyes with the last armored orc, the real leader. He calls it out. The last one he gets ready. The orc, filled with rage, swings its massive club. He saw it coming, leaping back just in time, dodging it effortlessly. In a flash he closes the distance and lands a heavy blow right against its back, but instead of slicing through, the blade barely even scratches it. Daeyoung, watching in horror, screams out that the orc's hide is way too thick. The attack bounced. If their weapons can't break through, they are in serious trouble. And the orc hits back instantly, swinging its axe backward with deadly speed. Just as the blade is about to connect with his neck, it stops, dead in its tracks. Just an inch away, Daeyoung holds his breath, expecting the worst, but all he hears is a calm voice telling him there's no need to panic, even with that axe. Moments from taking his head off, the orc tries to move, but it finds itself. And here it is, his trump card. A skill called Demon Bash freezes it in place. A status effect hits, completely locking down the orc's movements for 2 seconds. The time depends on the target's resistance, but 2 seconds is more than enough. With a smirk, he tells the orc to just stay put for a moment. The creature lets out a terrified scream, struggling against nothing, and without wasting a single moment, he swings his sword, cleanly taking its head right off. The orc's head lands at Daeyoung's feet. Silence hangs in the air as the reality sinks in. Dung was still reeling, his mind trying to process what in the world he had just seen. Sang-yun had only just awakened, so yeah, you and I are both wondering, how is any of this possible? Doubt flooded his mind. The hindrance skill Sang-yun used wasn't some basic version. It was a pro-level move. Even a named player's best shot would only last 1.5 seconds. The others started whispering, wondering if he was some kind of greatsword prodigy. Some guys even joked that he must have just watched a bunch of overpowered tutorial videos. But Dung was frozen, completely stunned, unable to wrap his head around it. How could someone who awakened mere days ago be performing at this caliber? There was absolutely no way he learned that skill so quickly. Just then, a system notification popped up, the screen showing his level up. But here's where it gets interesting. He also unlocked the conditions for a brand new title. The title, Fearless Immature Puppy, an F-rank designation that gave him a +5 evasion boost. He wasn't exactly thrilled with the name, but he knew that an evasion boost is always valuable. Another notification prompted him to act. Time to assign a bonus stat. Without a second thought, he poured it all into luck. See, unlike his past life, he'd learned the hard way just how critical luck really is. It boosts skill accuracy and artifact drop rates. Now it was a total necessity. Dung finally marches over, his mind still trying to make sense of everything. He needed answers, questioning if this was really Sang-yun. I mean, we're all thinking it, right? That insane skill, the way he fought, the raw power he displayed, none of it added up. He demanded the truth, asking where on earth Sang-yun got a skill that powerful. Of course, Sang-yun couldn't just admit that he'd regressed, so instead he just claimed he got it when he awakened, but Dung wasn't buying it for a second. His frustration boiled over. He insisted it made zero sense, that there had to be more. He kept pushing, suggesting maybe Sang-yun had just gotten stupidly lucky or something. Like maybe he found a diamond rank artifact, or something even crazier than that. His eyes then fell to the longsword in Sang-yun's hand, absolutely filled with suspicion. In response, Sang-yun just raises the weapon, offering Dung a chance to check for himself. Dung hesitates for a moment, torn between his doubt and his curiosity. But in the end, he gives in, inspecting the longsword closely, expecting to find something. Some hidden effect, a legendary upgrade. What he found instead was the faded greatsword. A totally ordinary artifact with +50 attack power, no special perks. No additional effects, just a standard weapon with a completely plain design. Dung lets out a scream of frustration, confirming the longsword was nothing special. That left only one terrifying possibility. Sang-yun's skill was all his own. The second he realizes this, a huge wave of frustration just crashes over him. He's been grinding in dungeons for 2 years, and even at level 50 he lacks skills. On this level, a bitter thought crosses his mind. If this keeps up, today's pay is probably going straight into Sang-yun's pocket, but before he could dwell on it, A voice cuts in, one of the other porters shouts out warning him that the middle boss was on its way. A guy with yellow hair glances at Dung's reaction. Concern is written all over his face, but Dung simply shrugs it off. He tells him to push forward, admitting that taking out the small fry was easy. Thanks to Sang-yun, but he warns him not to get too cocky. Because the skills he's shown so far, trust me, they won't be enough against this demon. Orcs, they were about to face orcs. San was surprised for a second, then he cracked a smile. You see, he'd almost forgotten the real reason he came back to this party. Stick with me on this one. After regressing, he turns to the party leader, Dung, and calls out his name. Dung, totally focused on the fight, just assumes he's nervous and asks if he's scared. But instead, Sang-yun asks if he can claim the artifact reward if he solos the boss. The demon orc, to be exact. After all, their party pays based on individual performance. He wants the Crimson Stone, an artifact that can only be obtained by beating that monster. This thing is known for its incredibly low drop rate, even after hunting hundreds of them. In his past life, Sang-yun never got one. Back then, his team actually failed to defeat it. But they did get the rare chance to watch another party take down the demon orc. He remembers seeing them get the Crimson Stone, watching the other team's members. They were all congratulating their captain, asking him how in the world he managed to get it. They wondered if it would sell for a high price and if it was really one of a kind. One of the only artifacts with the delay skill, Sang-yun knew that skill was everything. It was exactly what he desperately needed to secure his future. When Dung doesn't answer right away, he reminds him of the party rules. If his memory is right, loot is distributed based on contribution. So if he takes down the monster all by himself, there shouldn't be any issues, right? But Dung just stays quiet, and his reaction is definitely a little concerning. Still, Sang-yun knows how crucial that delay skill is for everything that's coming. Unfortunately, most people look down on a cocky rookie, and nobody takes him seriously. And right on cue, the other players angrily close in on him. Now pay attention to this part. They start demanding to know if he's crazy, questioning who the hell he thinks he is. As if killing a few regular orcs somehow makes him a chosen one or something. With a slight stutter, he tells them to calm down, but then Dung finally responds. He says Sang-yun can do as he pleases, which completely shocks the other players. He'll allow him to act freely, but only on one condition: if their team fails to defeat the boss first. If that happens, he'll be allowed to enter the dungeon alone and try to kill it himself. Dung looks him dead in the eye, seriously asking if he understands the deal. This is all going way easier than he anticipated. Of course, he accepts the terms. So for now, he'll just be stepping out of the fight. Dung turns away. But on the inside, he's absolutely fuming. He finds Sang-yun completely unbearable. So arrogant, acting like he's something special just because of one broken skill. Dung swears he will clear this dungeon himself and shut Sang-yun up for good. He holds the door to the boss's chamber, vowing to prove that experience is what really matters. That it's the only thing that matters on the battlefield. He pushes the door open. Stepping inside, he's fully prepared to demonstrate his strength, but then he sees it. A bloodthirsty demon orc is waiting inside, and his confidence immediately wavers. Massive chains wrapped around the creature clink ominously as it stares them down. Wasting no time, Dung orders his team to get ready for battle. It looks intimidating, sure, but all the intel he gathered suggested it was an easy fight. He's confident in their strategy and instructs his team to surround the beast. They'll circle around and attack from the rear. He shoots a smug smirk at Sang-yun. He tells him he won't even get the chance to interfere. Then, without a second thought, Dung charges. Screaming that he'll take the lead, he dashes forward with his team following close behind. Let's see how this goes. And just moments later, Dung is on the ground, bleeding and barely able to sit up. He can't even process what just happened, stammering out a confused what. On the sidelines, Sang-hyun has been watching them charge in like a bunch of fools. He sighs, wondering why they'd just rush in head-on. Now let's see what he's thinking. It finally clicks for him. This is the exact same reason they all failed back then. One of the players frantically turns to Daekyung, screaming that they need a plan. He yells that they're all going to die at this rate, and Daekyung just seethes with frustration. Why are these orcs so damn strong? He remembers the higher tier ones being tough, but this is insane. And only now does the bitter truth hit him. his mistake was relying on bad intel. He should have never trusted the garbage advice he picked up from the market. Gritting his teeth, he screams for everyone to fall back, yelling that the boss can wait for another day. But just as he gives the order, his eyes lock onto Sang-yun, standing off to the side. Unlike everyone else who's panicking for their lives, Sang-yun is actually smiling. Dung's confusion explodes as another player, completely baffled, just yells at Sang-hyun. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he screams, snapping back to the chaos. Dae-kyung shouts the order again, "Everyone retreat." He explains the bloodthirsty demon orc has terrible peripheral vision. They can escape. All they have to do is slip past its flank. Relief washes over the players' faces. They immediately start to follow his orders, but before leaving, Dung turns to Sang-hyun. He reminds him that he gave him a fair warning. Classic "I told you so." He adds that Sang-hyun shouldn't blame him if he gets himself killed here. Sang-hyun just sighs. He assures Dung there's no need to worry, because he has zero intention of dying today. Then he steps forward, right as the demon orc charges with its massive axe. If you compare their stats directly, he knows he'd lose. But trust me, stats aren't everything. With all the combat experience he's racked up, this demon orc is nothing special. As the axe plummets down, he parries it with his sword, shocking the monster. The other players hear the loud clank from a distance, completely stunned. Did Sang-yun really just deflect that monster's full-power attack? No way. Walking closer to the orc, he notes that his hand is stinging like crazy from the impact. Yeah, just deflecting these hits is probably the best he can do for now. His gaze then locks onto the crimson stone embedded deep in the monster's chest. Now here's the real reason he's doing all this. It's been a while since he last saw one. See, he's obsessed with getting that crimson stone because of its special effect. It would let him combine the delay skill with his own Demon Bash. At first glance, Demon Bash's current 2-second stun seems decent enough. But using his Devour Artifacts skill, he can merge skill effects, and an idea hit him. What if there was a way to stack the stun effect of Demon Bash over and over? He knew right away Demon Bash and Delay were the perfect combo for a potential infinite stun lock. If he can get his hands on that skill, it's no longer just a theory, it becomes reality. He then taunts the demon orc, asking if something's wrong and provoking it to attack. Enraged, the monster roars and charges again, swinging its axe to slice him in two. But he stays perfectly calm, remarking that this is exactly what he wanted. The more the orc repeats its simple, predictable attack patterns, the better. You and I are about to see how easy it is to find a monster's weak spots. Timing his move perfectly, he leaps forward and slices deep into its side. Alright, watch this. Our boy lands a perfect Demon Bash, stunning it for 2 seconds. From a distance, Jung can't even believe what he's seeing, shouting out in total disbelief. He's yelling that Demon Bash works on middle bosses too, calling the skill completely overpowered. But Sang-yun just mocks the orc, saying that while orcs are simple-minded, a demon one should be tougher. Suddenly, the demon orc violently shakes off the stun and goes on the offensive. It lashes out with a powerful kick, and the attack connects hard. Sang-yun barely manages to block it with his sword, but the sheer force is insane. He gets blasted backwards, only stopping himself by digging his sword right into the ground. He realizes his mistake. He totally forgot about the demon orc's self-regeneration ability. That's what cancelled the stun effect. To use Demon Bash again, he needs 15 seconds. This is exactly why he needed that delay skill, but if stunning the monster is off the table. You and I know what that means. Taking it down for good is the only way forward. The demon orc charges again, growling with rage, but Sang-yun doesn't retreat an inch. He stands his ground, deflecting the huge attack straight down into the earth. All while De Young and the other players watch from a safe distance, getting restless. One of them urgently tells Jung that they need to leave, since even Sang-yun's stun skill isn't working. But Jung, deep in thought, just asks why. He knows something isn't right here. He knows the stun wasn't effective and that there's a huge gap between their stats. And yet, he can't shake this feeling that he's missing a huge piece of the puzzle. He finds himself wondering how Sang-yun can stay so impossibly calm against such overwhelming power. Is he really truly just some random newbie player? It just doesn't add up. Sang-yun gets pushed back yet again but remains completely composed, his focus absolute. He tells the demon orc that he has faced situations like this many many times before. If he wasn't strong enough to just cut his enemy down in one go, then he needed to focus all his power on a single point and use its own strength against it. The demon orc charges in one last time. Now don't blink, this is the moment. He thrust his sword forward, piercing through its chest while shattering its axe into pieces. The system message appears, congratulating him for defeating the middle boss, the demon orc. His level increases and he obtains the E-rank title, Demon Hunter. The massive demon orc collapses to the ground, completely lifeless. The system explains the Demon Hunter title provides a 5-fold increase in health regeneration. When he's facing middle bosses or even stronger enemies, a massive buff. He notes that this is now his second title, and just assumes it's one of the perks of being a solo player. But as he turns to look around, he's met with the absolutely stunned faces of the other players. De Young and his crew are just staring, and Sang-yun realizes this could get really annoying. A simple, brilliant solution comes to mind. It's time to put on a little show. He suddenly shouts, exclaiming that he barely survived and asking what they would have done if their leader Daekyung hadn't already weakened the boss for him. The players, caught completely off guard, immediately latch onto his words, shouting that they knew it. They all turn to De Young, demanding to know when exactly he had dealt damage to the demon orc. De Young, still confused, is about to question Sang-yun when he catches the look on his face. That subtle, knowing gaze is practically asking if he's really that stupid, or if he understands the massive favor that's being offered to him right now. That look says it all, doesn't it? Sang-yun is handing him away to save face. Before Young could even respond, the crimson stone floats out from the demon orc's corpse. With the demon orc's corpse glowing ominously, he knew Sang-yun was waiting for him. Waiting to make him uphold his promise. With a bitter look, he mumbled to himself. This was his complete and utter defeat, but refusing to dwell on it, Dion quickly turned to the team, telling them to focus up. Now that they had beaten the mid-boss, they had to prep for the final one. The players agreed, but as they headed upstairs, the whispers began. There was no way Sang-yun defeated that demon orc by himself. Something else happened. Now alone before the corpse, Sang-yun finally focused on the real prize. The crimson stone. He stared at it for a second, before asking himself the most brilliant question, should I just eat it? The system window pops up, showing its details, a silver rank artifact. Special effect delay. It also increases health and strength by 10%. Now watch this. He activates Mana Synchronization, entering his inner world. His hair shifts to a brilliant white as his personal space materializes around him. And even he's stunned to see the crimson stone transform into a steaming bowl of master chef-level noodles, complete with meat jelly. A massive grin spreads across his face as he grabs the chopsticks. He can't believe things are actually going his way for once. Who could resist this? Without hesitation, he goes for the perfect first bite, noodles and pork together. He absolutely devours it. This is how you power up in style. Based on the 20% absorption rate for silver artifacts, his stats jump. Strength and health each go up by 2 minutes later. The bowl is empty. He successfully got the special effect delay, and a system notification appears. It reveals he can now bind delay to his existing skills. Okay, I know what you're thinking. A wave of excited nervousness hits him. Without a second thought, he binds it. He connects it to his Demon Bash skill, and the system immediately shows the new effect. It explains the insane upgrade if Demon Bash is used again on a stun target. It extends the stun. The second hit is a 100% guarantee. The third stun has a 90% chance of success. The fourth has 60%. Any consecutive hits after that still have a 30% chance to connect. He snaps back to reality, his mind completely blown by the possibilities. He'd only guessed that a 4-second stun loop was theoretically possible. But he never, ever imagined it would actually work. This is a game changer. Before he can fully process this, Doyoung appears behind him, asking for a word. He turns to see what's on his mind, and Doyoung explains, right in front of them is the final boss room, home of the Orc Berserker. Sang-yun just nods casually. He asks if Doyoung wants him to join the fight later. But Doyoung firmly says no. Sang-yun is surprised, but Doyoung clarifies he'd be a failure of a leader if he didn't properly use a powerhouse teammate like him. He extends his hand. Doyoung proposes they work together. Laughing, Sang-yun shakes his hand. But he reminds him his condition still stands, and Doyoung agrees without hesitation. And you and I both know not everyone is happy about this new partnership. The yellow-haired player announces the party is ready to enter the boss room. Doyoung nods, telling everyone to stay on guard as they move in. But that same player shoots Sang-yun an intense glare, and the tension spikes. Oblivious to the silent stare-down, Dayoung cheerfully shouts that they're on the final stretch and should totally grab drinks to celebrate afterward. But as the rest of the party moves on, our MC hangs back for just a second. He wonders, did he imagine it, or did that yellow-haired player really just glare at him? This is dungeon number 85, the final boss room. Upon entering, they're met with the low growl of an orc berserker, its massive frame rising slowly to its feet. As the party gets into position, Doyoung turns to him. He declares that he's going in first. Without a second thought, he steps forward. Gripping his longsword tight, he tells Dayoung to just stick close to him. Dayoung immediately protests, warning him not to go in alone this time. But our hero just sighs. The orc berserker actually has lower skill resistance than the demon orcs, which means stunning it should be way easier. If he keeps his attacks calm and controlled, there shouldn't be any problem. Then boom, with explosive speed he dashes forward as the orc berserker roars. Now pay close attention here, because this is where everything changes. A thought flashes through his mind. Has he ever spoken with this much confidence before? When he was young, he was always afraid. When he got older, he just struggled to survive. But not anymore, he refuses to live that life ever again. As the orc's massive attack comes crashing down, he deflects it with his sword. His mind is crystal clear. He has to change his weak past and change his future. The enraged berserker lunges at him again, but this time he doesn't even hesitate. He calmly lifts his sword. Knowing that to change everything, he has to prove his strength to everyone right here, right now. Doyoung, watching from the side, is in absolute shock as he sees San sever the orc's arm, in a single slash, causing it to scream in agony. Mumbling in total disbelief, Doyoung can only manage one thought: he's a monster. Okay, you and I both know that was insane, but watch how he uses this moment. He yells to the party to nuke it while it's stunned, and they rush in. They relentlessly slash at the beast again and again as it screams in pain. Just minutes later, the system message pops up, congratulating them on the kill. Dungeon clear, altar of the Crimson Orc. The other players start looking around, commenting on how ridiculously easy that felt. Some of them didn't even use a single potion, finally realizing just how broken that stun effect really is. Meanwhile, he overhears the porter leader asking his buddies if he should try and recruit our guy as his personal porter. But another porter cuts in, saying he was gonna ask first. The leader just yells back that he's got to make a living too. San can't believe it. Just like that, their entire attitude has shifted. He wasn't even thinking about them. The system then dings. He's leveled up and obtained a brand new title. The D-rank title with overwhelming power. As his level rises, he feels the pressure mount. The system explains that this new title extends the duration of all his status effects by 10%. Now this is a real game changer. In his past life, he never got a single title. A 4.4-second stun is already incredibly powerful. But he knows it's nothing compared to Do Jiangsu, the Ghost Blade, the title collector, the complete sword, and the absolute strongest. Let's talk about Gungu, the swordsman you and I know as a total legend in Korea. This guy became a monster who blew past level 500 before our main character regressed. Gungu was someone he'd only admired from a distance, but not anymore. If he really pushed himself, he might actually have a shot at catching up. The very idea filled him with a surge of hype and determination. Doyoung notices his intense expression and asks him what's up. Flustered, he gets awkward. He lies and says he was just stretching. Doyoung just praises him for his great work. Then he hands him an artifact which completely shocks Sang-yun, who asks what's gotten into him. Doyoung just says it's because he totally carried the team this time around. He claims he's a man of his word, adding it's only a bronze rank item anyway. Sang-yun raises an eyebrow, asking if maybe he's being a little too honest. With a smirk, Doyoung says if it had been expensive, he never would have given it up. The truth is, Doyoung's giving it to him because this would be the last time. The very last time they would ever see each other, it hurts, but he knows it's true. Sang-yun was already operating on a completely different level from them. And all the while, the yellow-haired player watches from behind, absolutely seething with rage. He can't believe Deung is favoring Sang-yun just because he showed off his skills a few times. After all the years he spent as Deung's loyal dog, he feels completely tossed aside. Frustrated, he mutters to himself, questioning how ridiculously unfair this all is. His frustration quickly boils into pure resentment as he curses them both under his breath. And you see this, he pulls out his phone to make a call, a huge mistake. Later at Sang-yun's house, he's just screaming with pure, absolute joy. This feeling right here is exactly why he became a player in the first place. Checking his bank account, he sees 6 million won and his jaw hits the floor. Porters usually only make about $200 a day, but Deung gave him double the other's share. Plus he threw in a bonus on top of everything, and that bonus. The Berserker Ring, a bronze artifact with a lightened special effect. It gives plus 10 strength and is designed to draw out its wearer's blood rage. Even though it's just bronze rank, he can't believe he got an artifact with lighten for free. The effect consumes 1 mana per second to do something incredible. It reduces the weight of all equipped artifacts to a single gram. He understands why it's only bronze rank. Most players would run out of mana in seconds. But here's the part you and I need to see, our guy isn't most players. Sang-yun only found his unique ability after 50 years, so he studied it like his life depended on it. In his past life, he had experimented by devouring countless mana-heavy artifacts. The results had been insane. Artifacts that required mana did get a penalty when consumed. But they also lost their mana cost completely. He can't help but smirk. He immediately begins synchronizing his mana with the brand new Berserker Ring. He doesn't care about some penalty. To him, the more skills he can stack, the better. Later on, at a private club in Gangnam, the yellow-haired player slams down his glass. He's frustrated, insisting to the man in front of him that he's not making this up. He claims Sang-yun really has a 4-second stun skill. The huge man across from him just narrows his eyes. Then asks if he's raising his voice. The yellow-haired dude immediately starts to panic. He quickly apologizes as the man takes a slow, deliberate sip of his drink. Then he asks what he expects him to do about it, and trust me, things are about to get messy. He hesitates for a moment, then explains that Sang-yun is totally loaded. And trust me, the guy he's talking to is not impressed in the slightest. He wants to know exactly what this yellow-haired punk wants from him. The kid insists this isn't about revenge, it's about business. He points out how the guild master clearly favors Sang-yun now. The man just leans in, repeating that this is about pure revenge. Then he calls the yellow-haired player by his name, his voice suddenly dead serious. And before the kid can even respond, don't blink, because what happens next is brutal. A flash of pain as something sharp slices right through his head. His ear has been completely cut off, screams echo through the club. He clutches his face, blood pouring onto his clothes. The man just sits there swirling his drink, asking who he thinks he is. Then he pours a bottle of alcohol right over the fresh wound, pure agonizing screams. Arrogantly, the man tells him he'd better pay up for this little meeting. He'll listen, but only for as much as that ear was worth. Then he asks the question that sends a chill down everyone's spine. Where is Sang-yun? The next day, Sang-yun is at the Jamel 4-3 training grounds, taking a break. He's still processing how the Berserker Ring has changed absolutely everything. His stomach rumbles, a side effect of consuming it, but he knows light follows the dark. He lifts his longsword, rolling it in his grip. He flips it mid-spin, catching the handle effortlessly. The weapon feels different. It's so much lighter now, thanks to the ring's lightweight effect. The Devour Artifacts skill even erased its mana cost, but there was a penalty. The effect was cut in half, but still, the weight reduction is massive. So much so that switching to a greatsword seems like the next logical step. He pulls up his status window to check the new stats. Level 7, 3 titles, but no Constellation affiliation just yet. 325 health, 32 mana, and 307 experience points. And that's where the real game begins. He needs to start attracting the constellations. A player can only make a contract with one, so choosing wisely is everything. Ideally, he wants a patron that complements his strongest stat, his insane luck. But without the attributes to get their attention, there's only one thing to do. Train, so after 3 days of grinding and non-stop driving, he finally arrives. He steps out of the car, stretching his sore and exhausted back. But the exhaustion was worth it because he's got something to show for it. A new skill, ambidextrous sword training level 1. This boosts his adaptability with almost all swords, a huge upgrade to his arsenal. He looks ahead, his eyes fixed on his target. Dungeon number 101, a rare dungeon exclusively for solo players. People wait for months for a chance like this, so he was lucky to get a shot. But just as he's about to step inside, he hears it, the sound of an engine. Looking back, he spots a dark car pulling up on the road. It's obvious now, someone followed him all the way out here. He doesn't know what they want, but one thing's for sure, it gets settled inside. The moment he enters, his pursuers follow. You and I are about to see a showdown. Stick with me here, because an ambush is about to go horribly wrong for the attackers. He's just sitting calmly on a rock, as if he was expecting them the entire time. They're confused. This is supposed to be a solo player dungeon. It's meant for only one person. The massive guy in their crew just sneers. He questions the lone player's sanity, but our guy is completely unbothered, gripping his longsword. He knows this group isn't ordinary. The lack of a healer and a mage means one thing. They've given up on playing safe, forming a party of just swordsmen and an archer. And yeah, you and I know what this party setup means. They're a hyena pack. A group that specializes in hunting other players. The brown-haired man steps forward to warn him. He says that if he dies here, his body won't even be found. Sang-yun just smiles. He knows all the risks. In his past life, the hyenas were completely eradicated, wiped out by the relentless surveillance of the Players Association. But at this point in time, they're still operating freely. Among them, the archer is obviously the biggest problem. It's a fact he's already calculated into his strategy. The archer then tells his teammates to finish things off quickly. He has no idea this is exactly what Sang-yun wants. To eliminate 4 bodies, you need the perfect private setting. And a solo dungeon is just the ticket. The brute moves forward, cursing loudly. But their leader raises a hand, trying to be a bit more strategic about it. The brute isn't convinced, swearing he'll make him suffer. Sang-yun finds this amusing. He notes how obedient the big guy is to his leader's orders, but he has no time for this. No patience for a drawn-out fight. He challenges them all to come at once. With a twisted grin, the brute lunges, swinging an absolutely massive sword. He screams that he's going to silence him for good. Sang-yun remains completely motionless, just waiting for the attack. Dungeons follow one simple rule: survival of the fittest. Monsters are constantly trying to take your life, and inside these treacherous places, artifacts and rewards are just waiting for those strong enough to claim them. There are no laws, no rules, just the brutal reality that the weak will perish. It's a lesson he learned from hard experience, and as the brute's attack comes down, a single slash cuts through the tension, blood splatters across the ground. The remaining men stand totally frozen, their faces twisted in disbelief. And just like that, we just watch their muscle get sliced into 2 clean pieces. His weapon clatters beside him as Sang-yun shifts his gaze to the remaining 3. His voice is calm, almost indifferent, as the survivors finally snap out of it. They sprint past him while their leader screams at them to keep their distance. The archer is ordered to give them covering fire while they try to reposition. Without hesitation, the archer dashes to the side, shouting out that he's ready. But his mind is still reeling from what just happened. He can't believe Sang-yun actually killed Sang-ho, the brute of their team, even if Sang-yun was reckless. He somehow managed to hit level 100 right after his awakening. Sang-yun casually spins his sword, glancing in their direction with an amused look. "Where do you think you're going?" he asks. The archer responds in an instant. He lets loose 2 arrows in quick succession, but with effortless precision, Sang-yun slashes them. He cuts them to pieces in midair, leaving the archer stunned for a moment before he shouts. A shout of pure disbelief, but before he can react, Sang-yun hurls his greatsword. The massive weapon cuts straight through the air, impaling the archer's body. "All right, you and I are jumping right back into this insane fight." The brown-haired man is shaking, muttering in absolute disbelief. He questions what kind of monster they're even dealing with as the leader assesses the scene. His gaze lands on Sang-yun, and in that moment he realizes something crucial. Sang-yun's only weapon is stuck in the wall. Seeing an opening, he barks an order. He tells his man to strike now, while Sang-yun, unarmed, rushes for his sword. The two men charge at him at the exact same time, right as Sang-yun reaches his weapon. He catches a glimpse of their swords swinging down on him from both sides. He dodges just in time, and their blades slice through the dead archer's body. The two thugs recoil, their eyes widening at the gruesome sight. They just chopped up their own fallen ally, who's still hanging upside down. Sang-yun, mid-maneuver, just casually remarks on how close that was. The guy calls him insane, but Sang-yun simply yanks his sword free. And here's where it gets nasty. The leader suddenly grabs his own man by the head. Panic flashes across the man's face as he calls out his leader's name, Jun. He demands to know what he's doing, but without hesitation, Jun yanks the man forward. He's using him as a human shield, just as Sang-yun's sword carves an X in the air. The attack connects, cleaving straight through the makeshift shield. It slices the man's torso and even severs a few of Jun's fingers. Jun staggers back, gripping his wounded hand, but he gets no time to recover. Sang-yun lands on the ground, watching him with cold, calculated amusement. "I know what you're thinking, but get this." Sang-yun asks if they're organ dealers. The completely unexpected question leaves Jun stunned. Sang-yun continues. He says there's no way a crew like theirs could possibly operate on trust. He speculates their true purpose involves mana stone awakenings. Done through organ transplants, his tone is casual but his certainty is absolute. He's seen this exact kind of garbage way too often in his past life. Jun just scoffs. He lets out a dark chuckle, dismissing the fact he's been caught so easily. He surges forward in a final, desperate move, thrusting his sword at Sang-yun's head. The blade stops dead just inches from its target. Sang-yun had already activated a skill. Demon Bash, he smirks, remarking that he was only asking out of pure curiosity. Jun's eyes widen as his entire body freezes, locked in place by the system. Stunning him for 4 whole seconds, his mind races trying to process what just happened. He recalls the minor cuts from earlier, but he refuses to believe it. That something so small could have paralyzed him, the possibility of a skill that broken. It's completely unfathomable. As Sang-yun approaches, he casually informs him. It's over. A wave of denial washes over Jun. This couldn't be happening. He had always been the one in control, the one who decided who lives and who dies. This wasn't how his story was supposed to end. A fragmented memory rises up. He had once told his underlings that as long as they followed his lead, they could have anything. They had believed him, praised him, but it wasn't long after that. One of those same men was reduced to a trembling, bleeding mess on the ground. Begging for his life, that desperate voice echoes in Jun's mind, pleading for mercy. Promising he would do anything if only he would be spared, Jun had ignored it. And that's when we see karma come full circle. He'd severed the man's arm without hesitation. He'd always been the predator, but now, he was trembling in fear for the very first time. Jaunt was face to face with Sang-yun, who leaned in close enough to whisper. The question was chilling. Had he never experienced this feeling before? Was he afraid now that the tables had turned? Jaunt couldn't answer. A moment later, the surface of the pond bloomed red as blood spread through the water. Sang-yun just calmly cleaned his sword, watching the crimson stain disperse. He had to remind himself not to get accustomed to situations like this. It hadn't been long since his regression, and he knew there was little chance of him ever becoming a powerful constellation. He told himself this was all just self-defense. He glanced back at the pile of weapons behind him. And check this out, the system flashes up his latest rewards, 8 artifacts. All from this one dungeon. He slipped his coat on as the system displayed his new stats. His level jumped by 10, and his total consumed artifacts was now 11. Health shot up to 400, mana by 50, and all his other stats had skyrocketed. And while he wishes he could have avoided the fight entirely, the results made it absolutely worth it in the end. He couldn't help but feel relieved that consuming artifacts didn't make him gain any weight. Based on his current stats, he was already as strong as a level 50 player. This insane growth made him wonder how much time had even passed since he regressed. His progress was just unreal. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a new prize. A silver artifact, the recovery ring. Its special effect allowed for instant debuff removal. It consumes 10 mana per use, however there was a catch. If he activated it again within a minute, the mana cost would double. He still couldn't believe the brute he just took down had been carrying an item like this. And that's when a chilling realization struck him: if he had put all his trust in his stun ability, he would have been in some serious trouble. The thought made him shudder. From now on, he decided to be way more cautious. He immediately began the Mana Synchronization process with the recovery ring. The scene shifts to a group of goblins trudging along a path when one of them senses a presence right behind them. It turns around and spots him just standing there, longsword in hand, eyes completely covered, as he slowly approaches them. Now, to get the Lucky Day title, he has to do something you've got to see to believe. Kill 500 monsters with his eyes closed. The goblins just stare back in shock. Their confusion only grows when they notice the eerie glow coming from his sword. He sighs in frustration, wondering how long they were just going to stand there. A soft growl finally escapes one of the goblins, surprising him. He could sense their presence without even seeing them, understanding the need for perception. He focused, feeling the movement of the air, sharpening his hearing and maintaining concentration. He was entering a heightened state known as the unconscious space. A state where pure instinct takes over. The goblins hesitated, then launched their attack, axes raised. He remained perfectly still until the last possible moment, as soon as they drew near. He moved, his sword arced through the air, effortlessly cleaving through multiple goblins. A single clean sweep, blood rained down, but instead of being disturbed, he found himself enjoying the sensation. But trust me, you're not ready for what happens next. A sudden shift in the air catches his attention, an arrow flying right at him. He catches it mid-flight, snapping it in half with his bare hands as a smirk appears. He was finally getting the hang of this. The goblin archer just freezes, completely stunned. You and I are watching him evolve in real time. Without a single hesitation, he advances. The last few days sharpened his senses to a razor's edge. He taunts the goblins, daring them. They charge in, absolutely furious. Blade in hand, he becomes a storm of steel, cutting through them. Every goblin that gets close is cut down, and his grin just gets wider with each kill. Minutes pass, soon only one goblin is left standing, and it barely has time to react. It can't even scream before he dashes forward, ramming his sword straight through its chest. Blood coats the blade. As the final goblin falls, the system chimes in, registering his work. Another level up, he's also obtained the D-rank title Lucky Day. Removing the cover from his eyes, he expects to feel a huge sense of accomplishment. But instead, it feels like he barely even broke a sweat. The system window pops open. The details appear. His new title, Lucky Day, grants a passive +20 to his luck stat. But that's not all. Additionally, whenever he defeats the same type of monster, his luck stat permanently increases by 0.1, stacking up to 10. Now let that sink in for a second. He just laughs, realizing he's collecting these broken titles. Another goblin appears from the shadows, only to freeze solid in pure terror. It sees the absolute carnage, its entire clan lying in pieces, drowning in their own blood. He just smiles. This is just another golden opportunity for some free stats. As more goblins charge forward, he welcomes them, eager to farm his brand new title. By the time the battle is over, his luck stat has skyrocketed by 30 points. He's actually trembling, letting out a wild laugh at the sheer absurdity of his progress. This one title has boosted his luck more than most platinum-ranked titles ever could. Thinking about its value, he figures it could easily be worth 500 million. Maybe even 1 billion, but then, a distortion in space rips open behind him. A dimensional rift has appeared. His heart starts pounding with pure excitement. The system announces that 3 powerful constellations have arrived just for him. The cleaner of a fallen dimension asks if he's interested in making others unlucky. The pilgrim of grand space is intrigued by his mysterious nature and wants to talk. And then there's the goddess of luck herself, smiling down at him. And you know this changes everything. She reaches out her hand.